Every 98 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. Out of these offenders, only 6% will ever spend time in jail. That means that for every 1,000 rapes, 994 of those offenders will walk free. I can almost assure you that you know someone who has been in one of those situations, whether they ever want to admit it or not, and that is how common sexual assault and rape is. I was 18 when my best friend came to me in tears because a boy that she knew raped her while his friends sat there and watched. I was 15 when a close friend confided in me that her boyfriend pressured and eventually forced her to do things that she wasn't comfortable with doing or did not want to do. And I was 13 years old when the boy who sat in front of me in English class decided it was his right to put his hands on my body without my consent and ultimately against my will. Punishments for sexual assault and rape need to be harsh and they need to be enforced. The 3 points that I want to focus on are what the current penalties are and how lacking these are, the awful effects that are left on the victims, and a recent case that embodies my whole argument. I want to begin with explaining what the current penalties are and why they're not enough. If someone is found guilty of and convicted of sexual assault or rape, then they're put on the sexual offender registry. This is something that they want to avoid because the label sex offender is not very appealing to the members of society, and I wonder why. Many of those who are being convicted attempt to make a plea bargain. They'll plead guilty to lesser crimes in order to try and avoid being put on that sexual offender registry. Well, in most cases, this works. They are allowed to get in trouble for the small things, but not for the big thing of what they did to that person. Along with the registry, they can and absolutely should get jail time. This jail time varies from state to state, but the time that I've seen can go from 1 year to 40 years. But most of these people don't get much time, if they even get time at all. Yes, some of them do, and that's good, but it's not enough. Like I said before, only 6% of those who assault or rape someone gets time, and that's not okay. This is what happened in my case. I went to those who were in power, and I told them of what had happened. This guy got merely a slap on the wrist. He was told, "Don't do it again," and he got a few days of after-school detention. I got shame. I got humiliation. I had fear of knowing that I still had 4 years in that school with him. And this leads me right into my second point, the effects of what the victims can experience. There are many things that the victim can experience after sexual assault and rape. There are short-term and long-term effects. I want to take a moment to tell you that 33% of rape or sexual assault victims do not go to the police or tell anyone that can help them in fear of retaliation, or they simply believe that the police would not be very helpful, and I understand that. Sometimes I wish I had never gone and gotten the help that I got, because it only made things worse. For the short-term effects, the victims can feel guilt, denial, shame. They won't feel safe, they won't trust people, they'll feel isolated, they might have mood swings, depression, they'll feel disoriented. For the long-term effects, they can suffer from anxiety, poor health, a sense of helplessness, they'll feel fear, depression, they'll have mood swings, they won't be able to sleep very well, they'll have flashbacks of what happened to them, and panic attacks. These victims are 3 times more likely to suffer from depression and 4 times more likely to contemplate suicide, which I can admit I have thought about because of how degrading it is to have this happen to you and then not have that person get in trouble. None of these things are things that people should have to live through. It is awful having them. It is awful watching your friends go through them. For my friends, neither of them ever stepped forward and told anyone, no matter how many times I tried to help them, because of how much shame they were put through, how much embarrassment and fear they had, because they knew that most times if they went and told someone, nothing would happen to these people. These guys got away with it, but they should not have gotten away. These first 2 points bring me to my final point, the recent case that embodies my entire argument. This case is called the People versus Brock Turner. If you don't recognize him by his name, maybe you know him as the Stanford swimmer, and that is part of the problem. You know his swimming statistics, but you don't know what he did to that girl. You don't understand what that girl went through. Now, as a quick reminder of this case, Brock Turner was accused of raping a young woman behind a dumpster. This case went worldwide, and he was facing up to 6 years behind bars and being put on that registry. He got 1 year because no one wanted his swimming skills to be wasted because he was such a good guy and he knew that he had done something wrong, so he shouldn't have been punished for it. Brock Turner was released just 3 months into a sentence after good behavior. You would not let a murderer get out after 3 months for good behavior. That's not okay. Yes, he may be on the sexual offender registry for life, but that's not even close to what he deserves. But unfortunately, he got more time than most. If you want to be able to understand what the victims of sexual assault or rape live through, Google the letter that the girl he wrote to him. This letter embodies this perfectly. The punishments for sexual assault or rape need to be harsh, and they need to be enforced. I have shown the reasons for this by explaining what the penalties are for the sexual assault and rape, by telling you the effects that are left on the victim, and by telling you about the recent case against Brock Turner. I want to close by using the words of the girl who was raped by him. "You don't know me, but you've been inside me, and that's why we're here today." The consequences of sexual assault need to be severe enough that people feel enough fear to exercise good judgment even if they are drunk. Severe enough to be preventative.